So very, very beautiful. My gosh. Thank you, choir. Choir's going to go now on the roof and check out the air conditioning. I'm sure the soprano section will be the one to find the problem and fix it. So what is it that you think of when you hear the phrase spiritual experience? The spiritual experience. Obviously, it's not the material experience. But the spiritual experience is the thing that requires us to move beyond the five senses. And whether we are aware of it or not, we are very seduced and very locked in, even diminished by our allegiance to the five senses. And we become very swayed in that unconsciousness by appearances and by content and text and the way in which we receive data and information. And even though we think about this spiritual experience and talk about it, we are not really fully experiencing it as long as we are in allegiance to the confinement of those five senses. So the spiritual experience is really about becoming hyper-vigilant and hyper-aware that there is far more than what appears to the lens of the human eye. And that's the task and that's the opportunity that we are given over and over again to move beyond just this sort of intellectual idea of it, but to move into the visceral, the deep feeling of our communion with that which is beyond language, that which in and of itself is vibration. The spiritual experience is the awareness that all form is a mode of vibration. So form is the chair that you're sitting in. Touch the cushion of your chair. That's form. Touch the clothing. Feel the fabric. Look at how I made this jacket out of a couch. All of these things are form. Everything that you're wearing, the jewelry that you have on your fingers and your hand, that's form. And this form is actually a product of vibration. A lot of times we say it's a product of thought, but I want to take it even further and deeper, because what is thought? Thought is the emanation of energy through vibration. So everything that we are experiencing and seeing is vibration, including our own physical bodies, or a mass of energy or a mass of vibration. And so the spiritual experience tells us and beckons us to understand that if there are things within the realm of the form of my life that I'm not pleased with, that I'm upset about, wounding, story, anything that has me locked into that form and I think that there is nothing else for me, I'm missing out on the spiritual experience, because I'm missing out on the fact that that vibration is a vibration that is constantly changing. And it is inviting us to create something different in that thought form. And when I began to get this, when I began to understand this, then what we are doing is we are applying and working in harmony with this thing called law, which is everything. The law of that thought, that energy of thought transmuting itself through vibration and going and attaching itself to something that is of a like-minded vibration, and thus bringing that back and producing this thing called form. So when I think about this, I must do more than think about it. Because if I want to have the experience, this is about spiritual experience, then I just can't sit around and think about it. I have to go and produce action with that. So backing up, one of the greatest books, I think, on the topic of law, and one of these online classes which is going to launch tomorrow, which is called Working with the Law. It's one of our most popular classes, so I went ahead and made it into an online version. But we used this book that Scheherazade has in the bookstore called Working with the Law. And Raymond Hollowell says, you may ask, can I desire things not ready for me to have? Any of you ever felt that way? Is my thinking so big and so implausible that the thing that I'm desiring just isn't possible? Anybody ever been there? Well, he says that. He asks that question. You may ask this. Can I desire things not ready for me to have? Can I ask, actually, too much from the law? Does the law withhold things from me which are not for my good? True desire represents the urge of life. So the desire, the want, the longing, that is an inner urge, that inner propulsion. That, my friend, that is inside of each and every one of us is the actual genesis of life brewing inside of you. And you know what life is, right? Life will not be denied because everything is life. Now, you can do an awfully great job in suppressing it, but it will not be denied. And so this desire, then, this thing that we question and we say, is this too big? He goes on to tell us, the principle explains, this principle of law explains, that no desire that is felt, no desire is felt until the supply is ready to appear. That is so good that I've got to say it again. The principle explains that no desire is felt inside of you. No longing, wanting, desire that for the expansion of you, for the natural state of your evolution. None of that is actually felt by you until the supply for that thing is ready to appear. Did you just hear that? Meaning that simultaneously, as our founder Ernest Holmes would often quote the master teacher Jesus, it is done unto you as, not pretty soon, or next month, or when I get everything in order, or when the kids finally leave, or when I get that ex out of my house, or when I get better, when I have this situation handled, then I will be whole. No, it is done unto us as I believe. And so when he says the principle explains no desire is felt by you and I until the supply has already arrived, then what does that say to you and I? That the spiritual experience is. It's all around us, constant, 24/7. It's saying, hey, hey. Do you ever go to the pound and look at all the dogs? They're going, hey, hey. I can turn Windows into Mac. I mean, they're just like, hey, I can do whatever you need. That's kind of like the universe. It's like, hey, recognize me. Recognize me. The spiritual experience is saying, recognize me. Beyond the five senses and understand and know that I'm here. I'm longing, I'm wanting to co-create with you. I get this visual. It's almost like it's inviting us to walk down the aisle, to take this vow, to become wed with it in order to be able to produce and to manifest the desire of our heart. And so it's that intention is like that walk down the aisle. It loops its arm with our arm and it co-creates with us. And we oftentimes are like the runaway bride. We're like just a little bit down the aisle and then, and that's when the doubt comes in. That's when the voice of the person, I object to this wedding. You know, that's you in your psyche saying, I'm not good enough, stop walking. You shouldn't be wearing white, you're awful. I know your story. It's all of that stuff in the psyche that wants to say, you don't deserve to get to that altar, baby. That's the foot that's stepping on the seed and the germination of the soil that says, no, you will not allow to grow. That's you and I thinking that we have the power to suppress life, and yes, guess what? Life will still go on. The recognition of everything that is there will still be made available to us. You cannot ask too much of the law, he says, for it is unlimited and the supply is inexhaustible. One of my favorite words. Just say it, inexhaustible. Just by saying the word, you already feel like you could run a marathon. Inexhaustible. That is the nature of the spiritual experience. And that's what beckons you and I to walk down the aisle and to accept it and to recognize it and to allow it. So I feel that there are several things then that are required for us to be in harmony with, at all times, to be blissfully wedded with this thing called spiritual experience. And the first one is, number one, you have to be interested. You have to be interested in this. You know, to be interested simply means that you are beginning to entertain the idea that this is possible for you. Now, granted, some people are not there. I'm going to assume that everybody in this room is at least interested, or you wouldn't be here. And so you've already sort of crossed over this total unconsciousness into entertaining the idea. But entertaining the idea is the equivalent of simply housing and keeping all of that information in the intellect and not letting it travel down into action. But to be interested is a requirement. And this is the thing. If everything is vibration, like we talked about, then the moment that we become interested, we emit what? A vibration of interest. Have you ever noticed that when you become aware of something, you start to see that thing more and more and more? The moment that you desire to go to Machu Picchu, let's say, all of a sudden there are articles and pictures about Machu Picchu. The moment that you decide that you want to go and take this class, all of a sudden there is information about similar classes. That's not a mistake. That's not happenstance. That's because the vibration of your interest is going and drawing those things to you and putting them in front of your face. That's an exemplification of how law works. So we must become interested. But, as I said, the vibration of interest will only get you interest. It will not give you the experience. So what do you think then follows being interested? And that is being invested. To be invested means that you move beyond the idea of it and you become the spiritual explorer that is willing to put yourself in the midst of that demonstration and allow it to use you through principle to prove that the desire in your heart, the thing that you long for, the thing that you want, the thing that you say you crave and long for, and that you know is a part of your being, your soul's destiny, that thing then actually has an ability to come to life because now your vibration has expanded from being interested into being invested. And here's the thing, when you move, when you make that vibratory move, then that vibration brings to you everything that is required to make your investment real. But you and I have to first be the ones that become invested. So I meet with someone, I call him my mentor, my elder. He says this to me every single week. He says, people are going to do what they want to do. And then he always does this. I repeat. People are going to do what they want to do. You cannot make someone do what they don't want to do. You cannot make another person become invested. You cannot make another person move from interest into investment, just as you can't make another person move from complete unconsciousness to interest. All that you can do is be responsible for your own personal migration. You cannot make someone heal if they ultimately believe subjectively that they cannot heal. Right? You can plant seeds, you can offer suggestions, but you can't be responsible for someone else's harvest. So no one can give me the spiritual experience. I have to take my interest and my investment, and I have to put myself either in a location or in reference to something that is going to facilitate that spiritual experience. I can have that spiritual experience in my meditation chair at home, or walking my dogs, or being in nature. I can have that experience, but I have to culminate my interest and my investment in that in order to make it real. So that means that just because you and I are here in physical form does not mean that we are invested. Only you can decide that. And isn't it fascinating that some people will be having a spiritual experience right now as we're talking, and others will be thinking about, where's lunch? And I wish I hadn't worn this because it's really hot in here. And so suddenly we've lifted ourselves out of the possibility of the investment of the experience, right? So living this principle then becomes our best facilitator in the experience. So last week I was teaching and leading a conference at Unity Village, the big headquarters in Kansas City. And part of the work that I'm focusing on right now is a technique called revisioning, which I introduced and talked about over the summer, which came from the works of Neville Goddard, who was the book for the summer about imagination. And I gave them an assignment after the first day. I said, I want you to go and I want you to revision. And by revisioning, I mean I want you to think about something from your past. Now, I clarify that by saying there really is no past, there really is no future, because time linearly is an illusion. So really, it's just multidimensionality. So this particular phrase, then, is not a true phrase. What's done is done. It's not a true phrase. Because when we say what's done is done, we are referring to what? The past. We are referring to an event that has already taken place. If there is no past, because there is no such thing as linear time, then what's done is not a valid statement. So I said, I want you to go into your illusional past and pick one thing, the first thing that comes to your mind that you feel was unpleasant, that you felt was the genesis of some wound that you carry, that you feel is the responsibility for the current marginalization that you are experiencing in your life. The first thing that comes to you, I want you to take that moment and I want you to then go back in time and I want you to feel the feeling, smell the smell, feel the texture, put yourself back into that place, and I want you to revision that event so much so that it isn't unconscious, it isn't wounding, it isn't painful, but that the communication and the events are completely transformed so that you see the value and you grow and you are thankful for that particular event. And I said, you got the assignment? And everybody said yes. And off they went. The next day when they got back, I remembered what my teacher says. People are going to do what they want to do. And he always says, I repeat, people are going to do what they want to do. So if I measured my personal success by how many in that auditorium did the assignment, then I would be struggling a little bit with my value. However, there were people in the crowd who did the assignment. And so I said, I'm looking for someone to share. And this one young woman, this young minister, a Unity minister, she raised her hand and she came up and she said, wow. She said, my mother had me when she was a teenager. And then she had another baby. And so by the time I was 7 and my younger sister was 5, my mother was still in her 20s, unmarried, vibrant, wanted to party, wanted to do all the things that people of her generation and her era wanted to do. And she said somehow, some way, when she would tuck us in bed, she would leave. But I wouldn't go to bed. I would sit up in my bed, and my window by my bed looked out to the family driveway. And I just looked at that driveway, and I waited. I waited for her to come home. And I waited, and I waited. And week after weekend, I would sit, and I would watch that driveway. And sometimes it would be 2, 3 in the morning before she would come home. And then and only then did I give myself permission to go to bed. She goes, that's the memory. That's the first thing that came to my mind. And I said, so how did you revision that? And she said, I sat in the bed, I looked out the window, looked at the driveway, and went, oh well, and I went to sleep. I just pulled those covers up to my neck, and I and my little sister, my baby sister, we went to sleep. And I went, fascinating. And I said, what did you learn from that? And I said, but first, before we look at the themes that were developed from that ongoing practice, I said, do you happen to be a person who over-responsibilitizes everything? And she goes, how did you know? And I said, well, what did you come up with it? She says, well, I worry a lot, and worry gets in my way. Ernie, worry just sort of feeds through me constantly. And I said, and with that worry and the coupling of the over-responsibility, how do you run your ministry? And I said, and do you enjoy what it is that you do? And she says, no, I hate it. And then she looked around, the auditorium because all of her colleagues were there. So it was very brave and very vulnerable for her to admit that. But when she said that, I go, do you realize that at 7 years old, you took on the mantle of responsibility? That somehow, some way that you were in charge, this was your lot to do, this was your thing to take care of, and you have created that theme and you are living that theme out even to the present day and to the world that you have been created now. And I said, what do you think can begin to happen, not just from one time seeing yourself going back to bed, but from multiple times going back to that moment and just letting that go? I said, do you get the parallel of how unilaterally that is going to help you, give you permission and insight to let go of this over-responsibilitizing? And she just became very emotional by that. And it becomes fascinating to me because if she had not been interested, number one, to even come to the conference, but more importantly, when she was given the assignment, if she had not been invested in that assignment, do you see, it's a great possibility, she would have lived her life out in this energy and in this mode of over-responsibilitizing. So I put that out to you and I. Because those are the things, those are the themes, those are the blockages. That's the vibration that is emitting out of us that is robbing us of having the full throttle experience of the spiritual experience. Right? Because it's far more than just the five senses. It's understanding why. And I want you to become a person that is so invested in the why. I want you to start to look around at your world. I want you to look at the landscape of all of the form that you call your life. And I want you to go, why is that the way that it is? Not from a place of self-condemnation, but from a place of interestedness. From being curious as to why things are the way that they are, and realizing because law is the definitive principle of all of life, that those things didn't just happen. That those things are not the responsibility of other people and other institutions. And mom did this, and dad didn't do this, and this person didn't do that. Those things are not responsible for the form. Those things are a part of the theme that my vibration has attracted to me to make me right. When I first heard years ago Marianne Williamson say, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? I didn't fully realize that what she was talking about was the definition of the spiritual experience. Because you see, we will always be right. You have a grievance and a grudge to bear, you through vibration will find the perfect people to go, yeah. Yeah. And the same holds true for the vibration of taking responsibility and expansion and saying, now I have the opportunity to tweak and to change this thought into something, to let this theme go so that I can cultivate this theme. And guess what? My vibration will attract people to me who will assist and support me to do that. That's the way it works. And I will get to be right. So as our founder Ernest Holmes would say, we are right by right of consciousness. Our consciousness will just magnetize the vibration of that, will bring those things to me. But I have to be invested in this process. There is a book called The Master Key System, which was written in the beginning of the 1900s, which our founder, Ernest Holmes, also got his hands on, which implemented and influenced a great deal of the information that is a part of the science of mind, which is the textbook by our founder, Ernest Holmes. And in the Master Key System, the writer says that our world of power is within. You know that. Our world of power is within. It's not cultivated in the external. Our world of power is within because from within is where we elicit and disseminate the vibration. It is a matter of individual effort and practice. We know then that every element of the human body is the result of a rate of vibration. So all form is simply a mode of vibration. So when I look at that, when I look at my world, when I experience everything and I ask why, I become invested in, not just interested in, but invested in the transcendence and transformation of who and what I am, from the asking of why, from the inner inquirer, from the inner explorer. I automatically change my vibration. I tell you, when you heighten up your investment, who you need and what you need will be right there at your doorstep. But you and you alone. No one can cultivate and create your own harvest but you. People are going to do what they want to do. I repeat. That's my favorite part. Well, I'm like drinking my coffee and I'm waiting for the I repeat. And it's true. So, how about this? What do you want to do? So you think that interest and investment is it. The last piece then, the bookend of this, is expectation. See, if I've migrated from interest to investment, then my migration is not complete until I move into the energy of expectation, which simply means I expect the law to deliver to me vibratorily everything that I have emitted. I expect that. That's what we call knowing. How does one cultivate a knowing? You see, knowing is very different than wishing, and most of us in here are very steeped in wishing. Boy, I wish this could happen. How will you migrate from wishing to knowing? Through becoming invested. But we arrive at this place of expectation where every single day we expect the harmony that is the natural state of life to present itself to us. We expect that. Have you ever met anyone who lives from that place? You know what's so funny and ironic? I see it in little children and I see it in elders. And then it's as if we all go to sleep right in the middle. I have seen little children who have an expectancy of good. They just know it's going to happen. There is no new cynicism. There is no worry. There is no constraint. And then I see those of us who migrate, and eventually in our elder years we get to that place of elder wisdom just because we have so much human experience under our belt. And through trial and error, we finally realized that the spiritual experience is far more gratifying than the human experience. And so I ask you to close your eyes this morning and just entertain the idea that there is that already inside of you that knows. And repeat after me, I am interested. Repeat after me, I am invested. And repeat after me, I expect. and explore where the validity of those sentences are inside of you. And through compassion, through being gentle with yourself, through understanding that each and every one of us is operating at the level of our current awareness, that none of us are ever stuck, that nothing is never final, that what's done is not a valid statement, that we have this innate power within us to go and to revision, to launch, to increase and expand our personal investment to the degree of our willingness. And so I proclaim, what a great word, I proclaim that the part of the soul of every individual that is listening to this right now, the part of the soul that is unviolated, the part of the soul that not only is interested and invested, but already has within it an intertwinement of expectancy, that purity of self, that which is the prototype of source, of God, of light, of energy itself, that which is contained within every single individual. I proclaim right now that that vibration that is inside the physical casings of every body right now comes to the forefront. It's as if it crosses the threshold. It's as if the door of my heart is flung open and it now comes and it moves cellularly inside of every cavity of my body, every cell, every organ, every tissue. It rushes through every chakra system. It rushes through every circulatory system. It rushes through my physical being right now, so much so that this physical being actually can't contain it. And so it bursts through the top of my head, through the crown chakra, and it goes into the limitless beingness of that which is the all. And it is that purity, it is that connection, it is that vibration right now that gives me a taste of the spiritual experience. Feel it. And being in harmony with this energy right now, we make a vow to not just let this happen on special occasions, but this becomes a part of the day-to-day intention, the day-to-day focus, the day-to-day commitment of allowing that which hungers for our attention to come now and to live through us and move through us in such a way that not only are we blown away, but we begin to receive and experience things that we couldn't have even articulated with our human brain, because it's so far out of the reach, out of the comprehension of form, that we are sweetly surprised, that we are especially looked after. And we move into that energy and that dynamic of knowing that cannot be tainted by any outside circumstance. So I proclaim this to be the reality and the energy and the vibration that moves now through every being. We are united in this. And if you are in agreement and in harmony with allowing this to be the predominant vibratory energy of you, then I ask you to shout out with me. And so it is. Thank you. I'm David Ault, and I simply want to say thanks. Thanks for taking the time to watch our broadcast here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. We have a vision, and that vision is to reawaken all to their spiritual magnificence. And one of the ways that we are able to do that is through this very medium of broadcasting. So if you got anything out of this, if you felt in any way inspired, or if something spoke to you directly, then I extend an invitation to you to become a part of our family by donating. And there are many ways in order for you to be able to do that. One is to simply go to our website at slca.com, and there you will find all different kinds of prompts that will help you support what it is that we are doing here in Atlanta. One way is to become a pledger. That means that you decide on a monthly basis that you are going to help us with this vision. Another way is to donate through our management system called Fellowship One, another through PayPal, and another even easier way is on your cell phone. You can do what's called text to tithe, and that number is 404-796-7030. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I invite you to come back weekly to see what it is that we're up to. Blessings.